do have Miss Martina Tiku is going to come through. She's our Equal Justice Works Fellow, and she's also from the National NAACP Office of the General Counsel. She'll definitely be giving us some great information regarding the legalities with housing and things of that nature. We will also have coming up, Ms. Martha Jackson is also our member here and part of the Georgia NAACP Housing Task Force. So Martina and Ms. Martha, if you can please come up, the show is yours.
Thank you so much. Can you all see the presentation that we've shared?
Yes.
Awesome. And thank you again for having us this morning. My name is Martina Tiku. Like Mr. Smith said, I am an attorney with the NAACP Office of General Counsel. I'm also an Equal Justice Works Fellow. The purpose of my fellowship is to work with the Georgia State Conference and the local NAACP units here in Georgia to focus on housing instability. And so Ms. Jackson and I wanted to just give you all an overview of some of the work that we're already doing, give you kind of a lay of the land of the housing crisis here in Georgia, and talk about next steps and how we all can get involved to support those in our community who are most at risk for housing insecurity. And so just to go over our agenda quickly, we just wanted to introduce ourselves. Like I said, give an overview of the housing crisis, help you understand what the federal government has been doing and the state's response as well. I'll give a brief overview of landlord-tenant law just so people are familiar and are able to answer basic questions that their membership may have and just take this information back to your community. We'll go over some housing frequently asked questions and then get into what exactly is the NAACP currently doing to help those who are at risk for homelessness or eviction.
Thank you. I want to begin by saying our speaker, Bishop Jackson, set the pace for us. We need to state clearly what we're fighting for and how we're going to fight. We're fighting for housing, which is a basic right for everybody. Everybody should have a house. That's a basic need and should be a basic right. Our community is in crisis. Many renters across the state, specifically Black and brown renters, find themselves facing eviction at a higher rate than other populations. Why? Lack of financial assistance, despite significant federal and state funding designated for rental assistance. Our people just not getting it. We know that. No matter what percentage is designated, it has to come to the lowest end of the individuals, and that's us, our Black and brown people. We have to get the money. Again, we have to be informed, we have to mobilize, and we have to organize. And this is what this task force is set to do. Again, lack of federal protection. On August 26th, the Supreme Court ended the CDC Eviction Moratorium. What that meant, eviction started. And I know we've seen that at the ground level, so we really have to be prepared and help our people who are in these positions now. Lack of options. What we mean by affordable home? If there are no homes out there for those who are on the higher level of the income, what about those who are on the lower level? We want everybody to be able to have a home. And so how are we going to do that? Go to the next slide, please. Georgia has received lots of money, as I said, and again, the money needs to flow down. There's money for past due rent and utilities. Various local governments across the state also have implemented their community programs to assist those behind in rent. But if they're not getting it, how will the assistance be done? As of September, Georgia had disbursed less than 5% of the allocated funding, despite the federal government loosening application requirements. Many localities across the state have failed to follow suit. So what that says to us is that we need you. This resource navigation housing tool will allow us to develop the kind of resources that we need to put them in a central place so that we can be on the forefront to help our people before eviction and after eviction. We need to connect, as Mr. Hill said, we need to have these resources available, and this is why we need you. You know the resources in your area better than we do, but what the tool will allow us to do is to put those resources in one collective area so that we can have them available when people are being evicted, when people are after eviction. You have the legal aid, we have United Way, Salvation Army, Red Cross, the moving companies, Home Depots, Lowe's, storage companies. We need to be able to have those collective resources in an area, one particular area, where we can say to our people who are being evicted, to our various counties, to our various local chapters, this is where you go, this is what you need. So it comes back with being informed, mobilizing, and organizing. Again, next slide, please. Why landlords can't evict? They can evict you for failure to pay rent. Violation of a lease, something you may not even be thinking about. If your lease said only 2 or 3 people on the household and you have 4 or 5 in your household, maybe because of some incident you had no control over, you need to be aware that that's the reason your landlord can't evict you. Failure to vacate your home or apartment. It is important to know why a tenant is being evicted. Again, we need to have people informed and educated. But I want you to understand, landlords must follow certain procedures dependent on the reason for eviction. And as the person being evicted, you have a right to know that. Next slide, please. Please know and understand that you may get intimidations about you have to be evicted, but only a judge can evict a tenant. Landlords first must file a case with the court in order for an eviction proceeding to begin. Landlords cannot, and I stress, cannot use illegal methods such as changing locks, forcibly removing a tenant from the property, or shutting off your water, your gas, etc. Once the landlord files the proper documents with the court, the tenant will be served. Understand that. The tenant will be served only after the landlord has filed the proper documents. And once the tenant is served, a copy of the summons and the complaint should be given to the tenant. Once served, the tenant will have 7 days to file an answer with the court. That's important. You will have 7 days to respond to that summons. And don't wait till the 5th or the 4th day. When you get that, you should be coming to these resources. I need help. This is what's happening to me. So this is what we're trying to do. We're going to try to talk about what you need and put these resources together so that they will be in one place and we can be organized, we can be informed, and we can mobilize the people before eviction and after eviction. So once again, we want you to stay informed, mobilized, and organized. The key to this all, though, is that we can't do it without you. Martina is going to talk more about how we're going to do and what South Carolina has done and what's so important for you to know the resources in your community and how we can put those resources in a particular bank and have them available. And we're willing to even put those resources in the tool that we will make available. But we need your help, and I hope you understand and see how helpful this will be for us to do that. And before I leave and pass it on to Martina, I want to recognize Elder Ed Dubas, Reverend David Walker, our national board members, Robert Pierce, our state person, Sharon Hill, our task force chair, and Jareen Grimes, who is over the state conference. And of course now, Attorney Martina will take us on to why we must fight. We must fight, be informed, mobilize, and organize. Thank you, Martina.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jackson. I'm going to just continue with a few more slides about the eviction process itself. And one thing to note, we will be providing you all with these slides. This isn't meant to serve as, legal advice if you are facing eviction. We just wanted to equip everyone with a general understanding. There are so many people in our community who, COVID has been the first time that they've been in this type of financial situation. This is the first time that they've faced an eviction or needed to rely on certain assistance. And many people are just really unaware of, like Ms. Jackson said, not only the social resources available to them, but also just what are some of your legal rights. So again, just continuing on this portion of understanding an eviction law, just wanting to highlight again, once you receive an eviction notice, you have 7 days to file an answer. And again, this is just general information. We really encourage anyone who's in this situation to contact an attorney or your local legal aid, but just wanting to share some general resources. So in terms of filing your answer, this is an example of a dispossessory answer form. You can find it online at your local magistrate court's website. But these are some of the questions that you would have to fill out as a tenant who's maybe facing an eviction, discussing if your landlord's alleging that you're behind on rent or you violated your lease, answering this form to say, what is your response to that? Or maybe you have counterclaims. A lot of people are unaware that if your landlord is not adhering to their end of the lease, if they're not providing you with an apartment or a home that is up to code, maybe you don't have running water, maybe you don't have access to heat, maybe there's mold or there's other conditions issues. Those are things that you can raise as an affirmative defense, but part of that is ensuring that you've been documenting these issues, that you've been raising your concerns in writing to your landlord. And oftentimes we're seeing people reaching out for help who they've been paying their rent and living in subpar conditions, but because they hadn't raised these concerns with their landlord, because they hadn't sent an email or sent a letter, they're unable to adequately defend themselves against the eviction. So again, just wanting folks to get a preliminary look at some of the resources and steps that go into fighting for your eviction and fighting to stay in your home. Like I said, some common counterclaims. Maybe the landlord has failed to repair. Maybe you're experiencing a retaliatory eviction. One thing that we've seen, especially while the moratorium was in place, landlords were looking for other reasons to remove someone from a home. So there are situations where maybe a tenant has gotten a church or another charitable organization to pay their rent on their behalf, and the landlord knows that this is someone who is in need of financial assistance and is looking for other ways to remove them from the property. Maybe your landlord has breached their responsibilities as outlined in the lease, or maybe they've taken illegal measures to try to remove you from the home. So there are situations of landlords shutting off utilities or changing the locks. These are things that legally they're not allowed to do, and many individuals are unaware of how to stand up against some of the things that they're experiencing. What can you expect in an eviction hearing? Once you've received that initial notice, be on the lookout for the court to set a hearing date and time. Prior to the hearing, the landlord and the tenant will have an opportunity to mediate. And that's something even before an eviction notice is filed. If you feel like you're in a situation where you can communicate with your landlord, where you can raise some of these concerns and come to an agreement, it's much better to work out something prior to an eviction notice being filed than trying to remedy situations through the court or after. And we'll get into a bit later about some of the resources in the Navigator program that Ms. Jackson mentioned, how that can play a role in providing people preventative measures to fight evictions and access stable housing rather than feeling like an eviction is their only option. If you are evicted, once a judge issues a writ of possession, you typically have 7 days before you must vacate the property. If you don't leave in the allotted time, you will be removed from the property by the sheriff. You can appeal an eviction, but you must do so within 7 days. And it's important to note that appeals can be very expensive. You have to pay court costs or fill out a poverty affidavit. You will have to also continue to pay rent if you want to remain in the property while the appeal is being processed. So just things to note that there are measures once an eviction has been filed, but we really want to come together as an organization to equip people prior to getting to this point, and then ensuring that people have the resources to stay in their homes or access new housing if that's something that they're looking into, and potentially getting to a point where we're supporting people in home ownership as well. So just a recap, only a judge can evict a tenant. So if you or someone in your membership is experiencing a landlord trying to pressure them out of a home, it's important to note that only judges can evict. However, the eviction process can happen very, very quickly. Although there is a serious backlog of cases right now since the end of the moratorium, we are seeing evictions happening very quickly, and hundreds of members of our community are facing eviction and on the brink of homelessness. And again, you typically have 7 days after eviction to vacate the property. Wanting to just go into some commonly asked questions, like Ms. Jackson mentioned, the CDC moratorium ended on August 26th. And so since then we have been seeing an influx of evictions, a rise in people who are trying now to access some of this rental assistance that Ms. Jackson mentioned earlier. The CDC moratorium was giving people additional time, but now we're realizing just how long these applications have been taking. So yes, the state of Georgia has been allocated a lot of federal funding to equip renters who are behind on rent, but that process is really taking a long time. And so we want to look for other ways in the interim to support members of our community who need financial assistance, who need information about new housing. And that's where the toolkit is really going to come into play. Again, once an eviction is filed, it's important to, again, seek legal counsel. All the information here is just general information. Every case is unique. So if you are in a position to, please seek legal counsel as soon as possible. Gather evidence. That's a huge thing. Any communications you have with landlords, pictures, any complaints that have been previously filed, whatever you can, just to gather information to build your case. And lastly, again, although it is backlog, we're still encouraging people to apply for rental assistance through the Department of Community Affairs. What not to do if you're facing an eviction. The first thing is don't ignore an eviction notice. I know this can be incredibly stressful for so many people, especially for people who this is maybe the first time they've experienced something like this because of COVID, but ignoring the notice does not buy you more time. It doesn't make anything go away, and it can make an already difficult situation increasingly challenging by limiting some of your options. If you don't want to move out, you don't have to. Again, only a judge can evict, and only the writ of possession, that is an order issued by the judge, can force someone to be removed from the property. So again, if you're facing eviction and wanting to stay in your property until the eviction hearing, consult legal counsel, but typically you don't have to move out until the judge orders so. Third, don't file for bankruptcy. I know for some people have heard information about this. Overall, filing for bankruptcy causes more harm than it does good. It can slow down your eviction proceeding, but an important thing to remember is once the eviction is filed, it's already on your record. It can impact your ability to find housing in the future. It can also impact your credit. And so filing for bankruptcy can also just add to the list of things that can hinder you financially going forward and hinder your ability to access new housing. Then the last things are don't stop paying rent. Don't become confrontational with your landlord. If you need assistance negotiating or communicating with your landlord, reach out to your local NAACP unit or your legal redress chair so they can provide you with information on how to enter some of these conversations. And lastly, just don't fall for scams. We're seeing now people are really preying on a lot of the vulnerable situations that our community members are in. So we're seeing people offering housing that's not up to code, or we're seeing people, trying to charge fees to help people find new housing or help them access certain resources. There are so many free resources available, and that's really what we're trying to do, is to compile all of them to distribute to our community members. So if you're seeing someone charging you for information or trying to take advantage of your situation, please let us know so we can assist you, but also raise awareness to ensure that others aren't falling victim as well. A big thing is financial assistance. And like I said, we will be sending you all these slides. So I've linked some of the different financial websites for different localities. But again, the general website that both tenants and landlords can access is georgiarentalassistance.ga.gov. You can get up to 15 months of financial assistance for both arrearage and future payments. And And there's more information at this website about how to complete the application. One thing I'll note, and this kind of points it later, what is the NAACP doing to assist people in these situations? We are planning to have a financial clinic. And so that's a situation where people who are in need of rental assistance can come and get support filling out these applications. For many people who are facing housing instability, they maybe don't have access to a computer or steady internet service, or they just don't have the documents that you need to apply for some of these services, whether that's a copy of your lease or a government issued ID. And it can be really pivotal to have someone just walking through the financial application process with them. And so one of our hopes is to have a program where people can come and get assistance accessing these applications, because we don't want our community members to miss out on these resources that are available for lack of information or lack of understanding. We've included, this presentation was geared more towards renters, but we know there are homeowners who are also having issues as a result of COVID-19. And so we've included some links as well for information on what steps homeowners can take to access financial assistance and just educate themselves on their rights as homeowners as well. And for the sake of time, we'll just move through these. But the last part of the presentation is, focusing on what we as an organization can do to support those in our community and what we can do to ensure that we have systemic solutions and systemic programming. The COVID-19 pandemic has really heightened the eviction and housing insecurity crisis, but we know this was an issue long before COVID was ever in existence. People in our community have for a long time been struggling with access to affordable and secure housing and getting the resources they need to be put on a path to home ownership. And so what can we do as an organization to support those and have long-standing programming? The first is the Housing Navigator program. So like Ms. Jackson mentioned, we currently have a Housing Navigator program that's standing in South Carolina. And the program, which launched in February, has helped over 140 individuals and families who are facing housing instability in Richland, South Carolina. We saw that was an area that had a strong NAACP branch and a high eviction rate. So we started the program there, but are very eager to have a fully fledged Housing Navigator program here in Georgia as well. So what the program does is provide individuals and families facing eviction or housing insecurity or homelessness with individualized volunteers. So we recruit community volunteers, whether that's NAACP members or people in the community who just want to support those in need. We train them on how to assist with housing issues and triage the myriad of issues that someone coming to us with a housing problem might have. So that's helping your client access legal assistance for an eviction proceeding, helping them find new housing, or just applying for other social services. A lot of the clients I see, they come saying, my landlord is threatening to evict me. I'm this many months behind on rent. But you continue the conversations and you realize they're also maybe behind on their utilities, or they have medical issues that they need assistance with. They have transportation needs. The Navigator provides this holistic support to ensure that all of these different issues are addressed and that the resources that a client needs, they're given access to. And so that's where the toolkit that Ms. Jackson was discussing comes into play. So this is just some screenshots from the website that we use in South Carolina. But as you can see, we've amassed resources throughout the state for different topics. So for our volunteers, you can go on the website and access the training resources. The volunteers can look at the website and see, if I have a client who needs financial assistance, I can click on this link and get information that will help my client and walk them through the process. A lot of people now are looking for transitional housing because either they've been evicted or they're facing homelessness or they're just in really unsafe housing. You can get those resources there. And then the last column, non-traditional resources, as you can see, we go through, state benefit programs. So applying for Medicaid or Medicare or disability or unemployment. Documentation assistance. A lot of people who are needing these resources maybe don't have a copy of their Social Security card or their birth certificate. And many of these programs or resources require people to bring that type of documentation. And so, information on how to get some of these documents, many of us take it for granted because we have, we know where we keep our driver's license and our bills and all those things. We have that readily available. But for someone who's maybe been homeless or was evicted and had to move out of their home very quickly, just something as simple as having access to those documents can be really stressful and can be a barrier to accessing the necessary resources to move forward with their lives. Information about food assistance, clothing, medical services, etc. So really just wanting to have a comprehensive database where we can provide our community members with the resources and support that they need. And so next steps and how everyone on this call can get involved and support the housing efforts that we're trying to build up. The first thing is contributing to our Navigator resource database. And again, all of these links are going to be provided, but it's just a Google form. I think I should be able to take you all. As you can see, we're just asking for your contact information and then information about the resource that you're hoping to provide us with. And this doesn't mean it has to be a resource that you're personally affiliated with, but just if you have any information. Maybe you live in Cherokee County and you know of some shelters that are still willing to assist people, or you know of some food banks. We need that information so we can spread it out to our community members. When people reach out to the NAACP, whether that's the state conference or their local unit, we want to ensure that we have the answers to their questions and we have the resources readily available. And so we really are relying on all of you to help us gather that information. And so we will be sharing the link to this form. But as you can see, some of the types of resources that we're looking for: rental assistance, home repair services, food pantries, etc. And then asking you to just give us the name of these organizations and the point of contact. The second thing that we're looking for is legal volunteer recruitment. A huge thing is people who are facing eviction, facing homelessness, or even for some of the homeowners, they need legal counsel. It's really challenging to pay for counsel on your own, and we're seeking to recruit attorneys or legal representatives who are willing to provide pro bono assistance to some of our membership, so we can work together to ensure that if we have someone reaching out to the NAACP who has a housing issue, at a minimum, they're able to be put in touch with an attorney who can give them basic legal guidance on their particular situation. We currently have a partnership with Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation, but we're looking to expand and just create a larger database of legal volunteers. So if you or someone you know, and even if they don't have housing experience, but they're just an attorney who is willing to assist, please feel free to reach out to me directly. My email is there, and I'll also put my contact information in the chat. And then the third thing is we're looking for just general volunteers, members who are eager to work with our community members who are facing housing insecurity. You don't need to have any volunteer experience, but we are looking for volunteers, one with the Housing Navigator program. And again, you would be trained on how to work with your clients. It's in South Carolina, the way it works is volunteers work on their own schedule. So typically you maybe spend 2 to 3 hours a week assisting a client, but that 2 to 3 hours can go so far in ensuring that a family has access to shelter, they have access to housing, or they're able to fight their eviction. So don't underestimate the amount of support you can provide to someone in need. We also, like I said, will be having smaller clinics. So the financial clinic, the housing clinics provide our community members with information, some of the information that I shared today. We want to ensure that everyone in our community is aware of what rights they have, how to access additional housing resources, and just general information on, whether you're a renter or you're seeking to become a homeowner, wanting to equip people in our community with that information. So if you're interested in volunteering and learning more about our potential volunteer opportunities, the Google sign up link is also there, and I'll put these links in the chat. Like I said, we will be ensuring that a PDF of this presentation gets shared as well, so you all have the links there. So I believe I've probably gone over the time, but just wanted to open it up for questions. I'm not sure there have been questions in the chat or not, but we really appreciate you all just giving us the opportunity to speak about the task force. This is just a small portion of what the task force has been doing so far. under the leadership of Ms. Hill and so many others who have been a part of this, and obviously working closely with President Pierce just to really ensure that those in our community who have, been directly impacted by COVID-19 in this way, like Ms. Jackson said earlier, everyone needs safe and stable housing. It impacts so many aspects of your lives. With COVID, we've seen that housing is a healthcare issue. If you don't have a safe place to quarantine, that can be, putting yourself at greater risk. It impacts children by virtue of their access to safe and stable environments for school. If you're having to move around a lot, that can be very detrimental to a child's academic performance and their overall well-being. So yes, it's housing, but it just really intersects with so many issues within our community. And we really appreciate everyone just really contributing to ensure that people in our community have the resources and the support that they need. So I'll pass it to Ms. Jackson if there are any other final words. You can close us out, but thank you all so much for the opportunity to present.
We just want to thank you guys and still continue to encourage you to get involved. We have to be on the ground. We have to be fighting on the ground, and we have to continue this fight. As Martina stated, housing has always been an issue. It just didn't start, but it
Oh, I think we lost you there, Ms. Jackson.
Okay, I'm sorry. We have to coordinate. We have to collaborate with each other. We have to work together. That's the way we're going to be able to get things done. And we have to put these resources in and have them available before eviction, after eviction, and during eviction. So we look forward to working with all of you because number one, we can't do it ourselves alone. We are united as one, and we hope we all work together as one. And thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Martina. Thank the whole task force. And let's continue to be on the ground, fighting, because we know what we're fighting for, a house for everybody. As the word says, the birds of the air, the creatures have a home. And why can't we afford a home for the people that we are here on earth now, and we don't even have a home for them? So thank you. Let's continue to fight. Let's work. Let's become more informed. Let's mobilize. Let's organize, and let's get it done. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Jackson and Ms. Tiku for the presentation.